Welcome back to the Trash Bowl. Today we have Alex facing off against newcomer Fenrir. Alex is bringing his Face Hunter, Murloc Paladin, Pirate Warrior, and his Tempo Demon Hunter, which is banned. Fenrir is bringing the Dragon Mage, a Galakrond Zoo Warlock, a Galakrond Shaman, and his Midrange Hunter is banned. You see Alex on the top, you see Fenrir on the bottom, and we're starting right off with Pirate Warrior versus Galakrond Shaman. Starting off potentially pretty strong with the Tempest on the hand, and it seems like the cards aren't perfectly loading. Bit unfortunate, but it seems like it's working now, hopefully. Fingers crossed. And the Galakrond Shaman heavily overloaded, but coming off to a quick start. Pirate Warrior, unfortunately, despite having the Brigand, not anything to combo it with, so the question is, do you just play it from hand right there? Which is a very valid play, but, you know, it always feels bad, because you are losing out on the value of the Brigand there, but also you want to have something on the board, and I think it makes perfect sense. Hits the Elemental in the face, decides not to fork Lightning, says, Alex, if you want to, you can trade. If not, then I'm happy to keep this thing. And Alex is looking at, once again, a bit of a suboptimal hand. Heroic Strike is not a weapon. So even though you will have an attack value, you don't have a weapon equipped, so Celsius Deckhand will not get charged no matter what right now. Fork Lightning perfectly set up here, of course, and I think we'll see that. We could see an Invocation of Frost on top of it, just to get the Galakrond proc and get the Elemental out. It's not necessarily a good choice in terms of the actual freezing effect, but I think there's so much more going into it that you might not care about the freeze. I think you might... okay, or you can roll the Elemental and then freeze. You could, because he could have frozen Face and forked Lightning and cleared the board and still invoked. This is arguably the more conservative play, but I don't hate it because you don't have to go fast. The Pirate Warrior is the more aggressive deck here, so what you're looking at really is just trying to control the game, and he did that, and he kept the Fork Lightning as a resource for the future. We see Shield of Galakrond come down now, contesting the board very well. Galakrond now in his second stage, and I don't know how I feel about hitting the Elemental in there. It seems a bit unnecessary, because if you hit into the taunt, if Alex hits the taunt, that is, he's gonna effectively just have sacked the Elemental for nothing, so that's a bit of a suboptimal play, but we'll see how that pays off in the future. Alex drawing a Celsius Captain with his Ankar, and not a lot on the hand for Fenrir here. It's just Hero Power, Argent Squire. Next turn he can play Galakrond if he wants to, of course not fully upgraded, but you know, it's still very strong, and you're not getting the Claw, you're not getting 8/8s, you're just getting 4/4s, but honestly, tempo-wise, if he doesn't draw anything, it might still be the best play. We might see the Captain come down right now. Alex wants to draw first, fair enough. That's a decent draw, yeah. Butts Raider gets 5/3 for 2, that's, you can't really decline that, and keeps the Celsius Captain for when he can actually attack, so as to really make use of that buff. Galakrond looks like it might just come down as I predicted. It makes sense to play him here. You really want to not have to take all that damage from the board. Fork Lightning is a way to somewhat mitigate that. You can play Fork Lightning and hit the 1/1s into whichever of the 3 health minions lives, but unless it's, of course... And yeah, no, I think I like this a lot better. You can clear the board perfectly. You even keep a minion alive. Well, actually 2, because the Argent Squire doesn't necessarily die. I would have preferred taking the Trader, because as you might be able to see, the Sky Raider will be able to trade into the 4/4 Elemental very effectively, so that might not have necessarily been the best play, but I can see why you would want to push a little bit of damage here and there, because Bloodlust could potentially give you some surprise lethals. I don't necessarily see it right now. I would have much rather kept the Elemental alive. And Alex now... Yeah, he's just looking at the Horde Pillager, like, yeah, I'll get my Anchor back. Can play a cheap Dread Corsair on top of it. It doesn't get to hit, of course, because he already did this turn, but Big Ol' Whelp seems like a great draw right now. Fork Lightning, yes. Hit Fork Lightning, you can play Whelp and Hero Power, or Fairy Dragon. Hero Power seems like the more conservative play, Fairy Dragon seems like the more immediately impactful play. So there's definitely arguments to be made for both. I like the Hero Power play better because you are the slower deck, you want to keep your value on hand, and losing 1-1 in stats for being able to get an extra 3-2 in stats later on seems like a fair trade-off. Heroic Strike takes out the Whelp, and quite honestly, I don't think Alex is necessarily doing what he wants to do. He's currently a lot lower on health than his opponent, and he's basically mostly just playing catch-up, and with the aggro deck, that's not exactly what you want to be doing. So, oof, rough. The Invokes, not as bad now that the Gallagher is of course already played, but it still is a 3-3 and 2 2-1s with Rush for 6 mana, which is still pretty good value. Could alternatively play the Dragon. As a matter of fact, could play both Dragons, and again, there is also the Hero Power. Decides to go with the double Invoke to probably clear off the Sky Barge, I would assume. There's an argument to be made, yeah, to clear the Captain, hits him a little bit in the face, you are ahead, and how much damage can Sky Barge do in one turn? We'll see. Now, of course, Alex can kill the Ankar, play the Horde Pillager, presumably play the other Pirate, so he will have 2 procs, and he'll get his Ankar back, so for him it's actually going pretty well in that regard. Doesn't have a lot of immediate impact on the hand, but maybe he can turn this around with playing just a lot of Pirates. Let's see what he draws. He draws a Southsea deckhand, which has charge because of the Horde Pillager. If he hits the minion, yeah, exactly. I think the play there was just the deckhand goes wherever the hit from the Skybarge goes. If it goes face, you go face. If it goes on the minion, you just take the trade. Invocation of Frost, pretty good here. It still summons a 2-1 with Rush and freezes something. So you could potentially just freeze the Horde Pillager, not care about it, or you could freeze face, have him not draw a card, kill the Horde Pillager with the Elemental, which seems to be where he's going with this. Plays another Elemental, so he can actually also kill the Skybarge. And yeah, now if you're Alex, what do you have? You have 2 Mortal Strikes on hand, which aren't going to do much, and you have your Southsea deckhand, which, you know, can either take a good trade or just deal a little bit of damage. Owl doesn't have the greatest potential here. It's potentially interesting to keep. I mean, we saw both invocations already, the Frost ones. I don't think there's a lot of good targets. You might just tempo it out, get rid of the spell damage. It's a marginal benefit, but you want to have the minion is the main thing here. Yeah, I was about to say the minion. I just don't see any reason why we wouldn't see that come down. Hero Power as well. Get just a lot of small minions on there. And now, you know, you're just overwhelming on the board. And Alex can draw an extra card every turn, but he also still has to do something. So we see him looking at the Mortal Strike, which is now, of course, I believe the condition is below 15 health. No, it's 12 actually. Right. I was thinking of something else there. So yeah, that's not quite there yet, but he can definitely get it by hitting into something, and there it is. They turn yellow. And now you've got 2 Mortal Strikes just ready to go. Also has another Pirate on hand that he could play. I don't think he's no, he has attacked this turn, okay. So yeah, but the Scavenger is definitely playable. And you can still get a Mortal Strike in if you have something you want to take out with it. Of course, if memory serves, they can go face. It does only say deal damage, does not say to a minion, so you can, of course, use those to actually deal some burst face damage, which is the main reason why you play them in this deck, of course. But he might have to use them to control the board so that he doesn't die himself. Looking at the board, Overloaded Crystals are going away next turn, so push it in the face, and I believe that's it, because we got 10 damage on the board, plus another 9 and another 9 from Bloodlust is just 28 damage on board, and that is an easy lethal for Fenrir. I mean, wow. So yeah, if he uses that lethal, which, I mean, seems very straightforward, then you would expect to see Fenrir go 1-0 against Alex, winning with the Shaman. So that is what he does. And we get to see the Shaman win. And let's see where the next match takes him. Of course, now Alex still having all 3 decks to play, Fenrir being a little more limited to his Mage and his Warlock, so we'll see if Alex likes his Warrior to go back to, or if he maybe wants to go even more aggressive with a Face Hunter, or maybe a little more consistent with a Paladin. It's the thing you have to look at in Alex's lineup is that definitely all of his decks are very similar, so there is still meaningful choice, but it's not as strict, and we see Alex going to the Face Hunter, Fenrir going to the Dragon Mage, so that's probably the worst matchup for the Dragon Mage here, because it is, at the end of the day, trying to out-control a little bit what the aggro decks are doing, and the Face Hunter is definitely the most aggressive of the aggro decks. Alex already faced with the choice here. Does he play the Blazing Battle Mage or the Drone Sharpshooter? Goes for the Sharpshooter. Definitely an interesting choice. Violet Spell and Critical Answer, also just Fairy Dragon, straightforward. Can't be hit with the hero power, so is a good trade for the Sharpshooter. And the question now is, what do you do, right? Do you play the Battle Mages? Do you play the Explosive? Do you use your hero power? And it seems like he's going to play the Battle Mages. Just go wide and not worry necessarily as much about the damage you can deal this very turn, but rather, you know, you're going to be effectively able to deal 2 more damage every following turn until they get killed, so pretty good thing there. I would expect to just see a Berserker come down, because they can trade very well into the Battle Mages, and then trade the Dragon into the Drone Sharpshooter. Dragon doesn't die, so that is pretty good. You could trade into the Battle Mages trying to prevent that extra point of damage, but you can still do that once it's at 1 health. We see 2 hammers on hand, so he's going to use one of them to take out the Berserker. I believe he also took the other trade, and then he hits the face with the remaining Battle Mage. I don't see the necessity necessarily for trading into the minion here, because you are literally, it's called a Face Hunter, right? You want to go into the face. Trading the Berserker off to preserve the Battle Mage makes sense, but for the other trade, I think you could have just let your opponent make that trade and gotten the 2 extra points of damage in. I think we'll just see explosive hero power here, and hopefully he'll go face with the Battle Mage this time, although there's a stronger argument to be made for trading here, actually, than there is last turn, because the hero power can also kill a Battle Mage, not just the trade, where in the other case it was just the trade that your opponent would presumably take anyways. Azure Explorer is a good top deck here. I think we might very well see that, because yeah, Big Ol' Whelp's coming down next turn, but you might want to have that extra dragon, you might want to have a slightly better minion than the Berserker maybe, and keeping the spell in the backhand, of course, for when there's board coming down. Is it stronger than Berserker? Depends, you can ping it. I think I'll just take another Explorer here, maybe Twin Tyrant, but you gotta be very confident that you're actually gonna get to turn 8. Then again, you have the 2 5-drops and 7-drops, so you basically have your curve until then, so Twin Tyrant is definitely possible. Azure Drake is just more versatile though. We see Hammer taking out the Azure Drake, makes sense, and the other 2 mana are spent on the hero power. You want to press that button a lot as Face Hunter. I definitely would have also kept the Face Stalker so that you can actually use it when you actually hero power on the same turn. So there was, of course, 2 possible plays here primarily. That was Azure Drake and Missiles, which more or less just pushes damage, generates a card. Big Ol' Whelp draws you, that makes more sense. Alex plays his own Big Ol' Whelp to draw a card, and of course to get effectively 1 extra durability on the hammer. And I think we might just see an even trade here. Azure Drake, something is possible. You could play Azure Drake and both missiles. You have 8 missiles, so there's a decent chance you're gonna get that. Choose Malagos. Nothing really wrong with that, but probably not gonna be able to profit off of it. That being said, same can be said for the Dragon Queen. So yeah, now you see, the thing is, now you're just committing to it, and yeah, he hit it. Of course, the other option would have been to just hit the Big Ol' Whelp into the other Big Ol' Whelp. Arguably, this outcome is better, but you can't guarantee it with a missile, so that's a bit unfortunate potentially. I could just see Face Stalker, Hero Power, Kill Command Face. Of course, the argument for Fire Dragon here is that you want to keep the durability on the hammer. and you can just play the Explosive Trap, you can Hero Power, and still more or less do the same thing, because you later on you still get the chance for the kill command, and everything else you more or less did. 8 health is rough to be at with the weapon and the kill command, of course. And Big Taunt, very important, circumvents the weapon, does not circumvent the hero power or the kill command. And with the Explosive Trap, that is lethal for Alex. I doubt he's gonna miss that. It's just, you just play Face Stalker, kill command, hero power. There is enough mana, yeah, there's enough mana, so that is an easy win for Alex. Giving us a tied up match at 1 each. And, you know, that's, I think that's the most interesting thing to look at, right? These more or less tightly contested matchups. Now, of course, Alex has a choice between the Murloc Paladin and the Pirate Warrior still. We've seen the Warrior already. Fenrir has a chance between the Dragon Mage, which he just played, and his Gallopron Zoo Warlock. The Zoo Warlock arguably the more comparable deck to the other two that Alex is playing. The Dragon Mage being more like... The Zoo Warlock, you're trying to more or less beat him at his own game, while though having the stronger control tools. And it seems like Fenrir is intending to go with the Mage again. Mage seems to be the better matchup against Alex's decks for sure. And especially, I think, if you're facing the Warrior, if you don't get run down immediately, you have a good chance. Paladin, of course, you probably have the better early game against Paladin, but it might be more even throughout the mid game. Though, of course, with Dragon Mage, if you go to the late game, you're likely winning against the aggro decks. And we see both players go back to previous decks. We see the Warrior and the Mage. Zelda deck hand doubly drawn on hand. We see a Frostbolt, which can be a very strong control tool. Water Elemental can be as well to a lesser degree. Just all the freezing, and we just see deck hand come down immediately. Twin Tyrant drawn, pretty good, but just not quite something you want to see right now. And I mean, coining hero power seems maybe wasteful, but it would have been a very sensible choice. Now we just see 2 Pirates come down, and the board is already taking a big swing. And now you can still hero power, you can play the Fairy Dragon, you can Frostbolt, the Bloodstained Raider. All more or less equally valid plays. Of course, if you play the Fairy Dragon, you might take some more damage the next turn. But that's kind of the same argument for why you might have pinged before, just to prevent that 2 points of damage, because they might matter later on. Once again, Heroic Strike is not a weapon, but you might still do it just for the damage. Decides not to. Very sensible, because you get uses for Heroic Strike later on. And we've seen Alex make some good trades with it as well. Decides to go with the Elemental, because he knows he can get a lot of good trades out of it. Coins it even. So that tells you how confident he's in it. And Alex, once again, drawing all the Mortal Strikes. Goes for the Heroic, and he's just gonna go, hit everything in the face. That is 10 points of damage this turn. Of course, if you can keep that up. Now, with Minion Styling, he can't necessarily do that, but he also has Mortal Strikes to compensate a little bit for that. He can basically win in 1.5 turns. So, now, if you're Fenrir, I think you want to definitely ping one of the... Okay, you can play Knife Juggler, hit into the Brigand, and then play another minion, just hoping to not hit face. But I think the best odds are, in fact... I might have played the Berserker here, it's a better trade into the deckhand. Alex, if he wants to play very aggressively, can play the Captain and hit another 3 points of damage in the face. Or he can take the trade and slow down a little bit. Either way, he can probably get a hero power in, and it makes sense not to... Because you don't want to Mortal Strike anything right now, necessarily. You could have Mortal Striked the Borderlands Elemental and clear the board, but at that point you're being reactive, and that's not necessarily what you want to be. So he takes some more proactive play here. Big Ol' Whelp seems like a sensible play. You can trade off the entire board. Hit the Fairy Dragon into the South Sea Captain, hit the Elemental into the deckhand, or... Oh right, hero power also works, yeah, that's perfectly fine. In that case, yes, of course hit the Elemental in. Retaining all of his stuff. Alex has effectively 12 points of damage on hand, if he takes a bunch more damage first, weapon is a lot better here. Arcanine Reaper especially, that is gonna kill him in 2 turns, yeah. So, Fenrir now has to basically put up a taunt. He doesn't know it yet. Oh yeah, no, actually the Water Elemental is gonna be rough because it can, yeah. Didn't think about that for a split second. The Water Elemental can of course freeze the face every single turn, making the Arcanine Reaper more or less useless, and so same thing applies to the upgrade. Now once Alex is below 12, he can instantly win with double Mortal Strike. Decides to just push 1 right now though, full well knowing that if he wasn't to get frozen, you can Arcanine Reaper upgrade for an instant win. That being said, I think there is an argument to be made for just letting yourself get beaten down until you can just win with the strikes. It's definitely an uncomfortable thing to do, because you really have to have a turn where you actually end with below 12 but above 0, which, as we can see right here, doesn't exactly look like it's gonna happen, because there's way too much damage on the board. And yeah, Fenrir hovering over some of his cards that are very good control tools coming up, but Alex just doesn't have anything to not immediately lose. If you look at it, the most damage he can prevent is 3 with his Mortal Strike, so we're looking at still 15 points of damage, so that's just it. Honestly, I don't see an out here. And seeing that there is no draw in his hand, and no card generation either for that matter, there really isn't an out. Yeah, and Alex sees it of course, and he decides to end the game right there, meaning that Fenrir now also won with his Mage, making it 2-1. Alex now knows what he's facing. He is facing the Galakrond Zoo Warlock. Now Galakrond Zoo Warlock, as opposed to quote-unquote regular Zoo Warlock, is more control focused a little bit, just by how some of the invoke cards work. So even though the deck itself is not necessarily built for control, there is a couple of control options there. You also get very wide boards with some of the invokes, so... and of course the Galakrond himself can give you a giant wall, so I think... this is a bit of a tough matchup for Alex, no matter what. He picks the Paladin, the Murloc Paladin, deciding not to necessarily lose another one with the Pirates, and with the Warlock it's interesting because you can either win by just controlling the early game a little bit and pushing later on, or you can win by actually just overwhelming the board. So that's to discover Lackey turn 1, only thing you can do, picks the Ethereal Lackey. Out of this given set, it's definitely the best choice. Otherwise, always an interesting pick to make. It's never the worst, but it's not always the best, because it depends heavily on what your hand is and what you're trying to do. Right now, obviously, just Walker Lackey. You could tap, but I think you want to contest the board here. And the Lackey could potentially give you something to play as well. You can potentially get like an invocation like Fiendish Rites, for example. I think that's the easy pick. This pick's called the Void instead. Saying I don't really like the Rites at this point, and maybe I'll get a demon that I can play. There's definitely a good reason for that. I personally would have just liked the play where you know what you're getting out of it, and what you're getting is, among other things, an Evoke, which is really awesome, of course, for you. Decides to call the Void here, and gets a Flame Imp! That's exactly what you were looking for with this. And he still taps, though. I think Flame Imp would have contested the board very well, but decides to play it a little slow here. Of course, with a Knife Juggler on hand now, that's a good thing to go with the Flame Imp, and Scargill, not exactly what you want. Alex, of course, got a War Leader, so that's exactly what he wants, and now you can go Knife Juggler, double Flame Imp, but you might as well just go with an Evoke here, play the Maniac, get your Invoke in, kill the 4-2, contest the board a little bit, try to slow the Murlocs down, because there's one thing I know about Murlocs, and that is, once they're going, they're going. Once you slow them down, you probably slow them down quite a bit. So, very momentum-based deck, so you want to take the momentum away from the opponent. And Imprisoned Sungill is one of those things that can turn that momentum around a little bit. Henchland Hogseed, just trying to stay in control of the board a little bit. The Fishlinger could push the damage, could also trade, which is what Alex does. I personally prefer pushing the damage here, but the argument for trading, of course, is that you keep more minions on the board that way. And Fenrir now pulling the trigger on that Knife Juggler, knowing there's a lot of 1 health minions around, and hits the first juggle in the perfect target. Now there's the option to Evil Genius something, or to play another Flame Imp, or to taps, gets another Knife Juggler. Probably what you'd want out of a Zoo deck. Of course, this one being a little more late game heavy as well with some of the other cards, like the Twin on the hand. Murloc War Leader, not the greatest thing that you could wish for, but it does allow you to clear off the board. So, you know, and of course we know the Sungill is waking up next turn, so if you're Fenrir, you definitely want to get rid of that War Leader. And I think Sinister Deal might be the best way to do that. But it's still pretty rough because it's going to be 1 off, so you would want to get Faceless. Yeah, that works. Snap Pick there, and of course you get 2 juggles out of it, so that's pretty good. Both go face, which in other matchups you might really like, but in this case not as much. Gets another minion out, gets another juggle in the face, so you know. Sungill wakes up, lots of Murlocs. Luckily for Fenrir they can attack this turn. For Alex, yeah, perfect Consec. And of course, the nice thing about Consec is it also deals a little bit of face damage. Upgrades his War Leader a little bit, makes it harder to kill, and it seems that Alex has firm control of this matchup now. Let's look at this, right? We have producing a Taunt. Could potentially be kind of big. Yeah. I think you would have wanted to play the Draconic Lackey before you play the Sea Giant, because you might as well, because it's free. But this way it's not going to make much of a difference, of course, because you're probably not going to do anything with that other mana. You're not going to play Flame Imp because you're so low on health. And now it's just time to push through that Taunt. And push he does. That is lethal, yeah. That's GG, and 2-2, making this a very tight matchup. We see the Paladin win here. And 2-2, we know what the matchup is. It's Zoo Warlock versus Pirate Warrior. Now we've seen Alex struggle with the Pirate Warrior earlier, and the Zoo Warlock has also just lost, so you know, both players probably not feeling too horribly confident with the decks that they are bringing, but this is what it comes down to, and honestly, I think this one mostly comes down to the luck of the draw. And right now it seems that both players are having very good early game draws. Alex decides to play the slightly more passive Gangnark because he knows that the Saucy deck will have charge at one point. I think we'll just see Mermy here, playing it a little bit slow, but Kambler is possible. So is Juggler. Juggler, of course, doesn't have a great follow-up right now because he only has one 1-drop on the hand, so he's probably only get 1 juggle. If you play Juggler on 2, he would have had a really good juggle with the Cultist, so that's how I would have probably played it, but Voidwalker is a good draw here, Mermy as well, and then you just hit the face with the Juggler. And that is exactly what you want to see, of course, when you're as Fenrir. Now, Alex does have the weapon, and conveniently drew the Dread Corsair there. And the weapon takes out the Taunt, the Charge, or the... I mean, really doesn't make much of a difference, can take out the Juggler, the other thing goes face. And this was a big momentum shift turn, of course, something that these imprisoned minions generally do. Dragonblight Cultist still doesn't seem horrible, but also you can just get a Lackey. If you still have the Juggler, Dragonblight Cultist would be great, of course. This could go into the Taunt or the Ganark. I would have put it... Yeah, I don't think he's realized the Taunt was there. Because I would have put it in the Taunt with the Mermy taking out the 3-3 rather than the 2-2. That being said, Alex has multiple options on hand. I personally like both Korkron and Captain here. Korkron is more mana efficient, of course. And just, you know, now just push it. And 16 health, that's round about half. In a class that has a hero power that damages the hero, and that is rough. Can't play Dragonblight Cultist and Juggler in the same turn, so he's probably just going to play Juggler and Mermy. And hope to play Cultist next turn. Take some trades on the way. And he says, whoopsie. I mean, that was kind of the best he could do with what he had, I think. That being said, of course, Horde Pillager takes out another Knife Juggler, Pokemon can go face, 12 health is not what you want to be at. And with that Heroic Strike, Alex can deal 7 with just what he has there. The taunt kind of must come up. I don't see the argument for Cultist right now. I think you want to play Shield to survive. Plays the Cultist. Controversial choice. Because the Shield would have just been better. That being said, Alex now of course has lethal. He's 1 point off. He had that. We as the viewers and the commentators of course know it. Fenrir did not. He did not necessarily know there was a lethal. But still, Alex, by the way, now going 3-0 and winning his first Trash Bowl matchup ever, I think. I think the Shield would have been better. That being said, I think Alex would have still probably won that matchup with maybe taking a turn more, so not a huge difference here, but let us know what you thought in the comments below. Leave a like for the great Hearthstone you just saw for this thrilling close matchup, and join the Discord server if you haven't already, where you can meet not only the 2 people playing in this tournament, but the 2 people playing in this match, but also everyone playing in the tournament, as well as a big chunk of our community. You can ask for Hearthstone advice, you can play against people, you know, all the stuff you would want to do. And until next time, that's it.